everyone. This is Yosef of 52Frames, just drinking a nice cup of strong coffee here on Monday morning. We haven't done this in a while, so I thought I would just sit down and give you guys a quick screencast critique for this week's album, Week 44, Emotion. I was really impressed with this album. I thought you guys really submitted some very dramatic photos. It seems like this week really stepped up a notch. So I just want to quickly go through a couple of the photos that I took out. And in no particular order, I'll just share my thoughts on each photo and things that just stick out at me. I actually haven't looked at these really thoroughly, so I'll just give you my quick critique. Just a cup of coffee and critique. Coffee and critique. That could be the name of a new program. Okay, so this one is really beautiful, and I noticed this pattern actually in a lot of the submissions of this light and dark, which is beautiful. I'm so happy that people really went to the next layer of emotion, right? The simple surface level of emotion could just be somebody that's screaming or crying. And this is a whole nother layer where you're really shaping the image and you really put thought into how your composition will portray a specific emotion rather than just the subject or the content itself. So this is a really pretty example. I really like this one, and I look at it and I notice what looks like camera shake, which is different than focus blur, which comes from the lens not focusing spot on the subject. And camera shake is usually from a low shutter speed or a shutter speed that's not fast enough. So let's just take a quick look at the EXIF data here. And yeah, we're seeing 1/10, which is quite slow. And then when we see your focal length, that's actually pretty zoomed in, 80 millimeters. I've heard that you do as a starting point, you can use the shutter speed of 1 over whatever your focal length is. So in this case, like you want to at least be 1/80 or above. I still think that's a bit too slow. I generally recommend as a starting point, again, it changes depending on what situation you're in, but 1/125 is a very good starting point. If you're using zoom lenses and you're zooming into this range, then you want to maybe go a little bit higher. 1/10 though is quite slow. And that's why we're seeing here, I don't know if you can see, that's here. You see this cigarette, you see very clearly that is motion blur. That's slow shutter speed. Another beautiful example of light and dark. I mean, that's just a lovely image. This one also really beautiful. I mean, this is just great. And the fabric is blending in with his shirt, with the shadow. You know, when you squint your eyes, you really, it's a beautiful composition. This one is really nice. I like what you did here, Andre. Really saturated the blues here. I think your horizon line may be a little bit off. Yeah, that's better. Just a tick. And the only thing I would do is maybe see if I can get rid of this thing. Because it is a bit distracting. If you were going to do any post-processing work, let's see if the computer can do this. Yeah, that's not bad. Because you can see it seems to take away from the intended composition, at least the way my eyes see it. This one is really nice, submitted by Beth. I think that there's not enough light in the shadows here. Let's look at your EXIF data. Okay, you're zoomed in quite a lot. You're using a 28 to 300 lens. and 1/800, which should definitely be fast enough. 5.6. I think you may actually not be letting enough light in to begin with, which may be the issue. But if we look at our histogram here, we see the wave is bumped up against the left wall. And if we show the clipping warning, the shadow clipping warning, we see that there is actually some blacks that are crushed, that are not showing. The data is not there. What I would do is just lift the shadows here. Let's see what that looks like. You see just right away, it's a bit exaggerated, but you can see the image just come out a lot more. I mean, I would probably fine tune it better with an adjustment brush, and just apply the shadow where we want it. And also the eyes are quite dark, and I would just bring up, maybe that's a bit too much. And you can see the before and after here. Just give life to the eyes, give life to the shadow, because when you have these crushed blacks, that's not terrible. Again, you have a lot of artistic license, but what's very interesting is that the viewer will always notice it. The viewer will always notice when there's crushed blacks and when there's blown out highlights. Meaning your brain, visually, you pick up on it, even if you don't even know what that means. When you look at a photo like this, you feel like you're missing out on some of the spectrum because this is completely black. So it's something that you should try and be sensitive to. This one is just lovely. I have nothing bad to say about this photo. This is great. That is excellent. You captured a moment. This is the moment that you capture when you have a camera in your hand. When you're in 52 frames and you're out like at a barbecue or something, and of course you have your camera with you. This is just beautiful. I really like this. And Dubitsky submitted this one. You really get to the heart of the matter. Very emotional, subdued. I wonder if this is the part of her top, part of her clothing here. And I'm not a nudist or anything, but I wonder if, to me, this is a little bit distracting. Like, I wonder how much it would add to the composition if you had more of a sense of vulnerability, of loneliness. I don't know if I can really take this out. Let's see what the robot does here. Not really. But just to get a sense of like that's a horrible job that this brush did just now. This brush wasn't me, of course. But ignoring just looking at the tonality, I don't know. The black just seems to distract my eye. But that's just me. That's just my gut. It's just my gut talking. This is also really lovely. It looks a bit soft. I would maybe add a little bit of clarity. Let's see if we can bring up your EXIF data. Nope. You have wiped your data, Nina Kling. What are you hiding? Just joking. I imagine that you shot this at a high ISO and then you went in to the noise reduction slider and you picked up this luminance, and you see what the effect it has. It does take away the noise, but it also softens the image. Obviously, I'm showing you a very exaggerated view of that. So to me, it may have been overdone just a touch. You can add some clarity. Now this is too much clarity. Now I would argue that it's too much on that slider. So you have to find the medium, but I think adding a little bit of clarity to this would sharpen up this image, which is just a bit soft. Aaron Swift, very helpful, by the way. If you use your name in your file name, then I can see it. In general, it's very helpful. This one is lovely, actually, very light. Wow, this is like our lightest photo yet. Very dark, people. No, I like it. The dark is good. Just an observation. Beautiful catch lights in the eyes. Eyes are gorgeous. I feel bad critiquing this photo. It's beautiful. But maybe lowering the highlights here. I'm just trying to think of how I would bring out the eyes more. If I were to that's a bit overdone, but something that would basically lower the exposure elsewhere. Okay, that's maybe something like that. But again, that's, you know, that may not have been your intention. The truth is, with what I did, you're seeing the eyes more. But what you have is lighter all around, and kind of like what you did, so well done. This is another great example of this light and shadow play that a lot of you submitted, which I think is really wonderful. In general, what's important to keep in mind, and again, artistic license, Sarah, there is nothing wrong with how you shot this if this was your intent, but just something to keep in mind when you're shooting a low-key composition, meaning when most of the image is in the shadows here, which, by the way, we turn on our clipping warning, all crushed blacks, but that's fine. That's the point of this image. You can pay attention more so that your whites and your highlights can be more on this part of the spectrum on the histogram, meaning your whites can be bumped up and the blacks can remain the same, and you'll have the same effect of a low key, but it won't be this gray, this bit of a muddle gray area, and you'll create that contrast while keeping the dark mood. Now, I don't know how much I can do this editing on a JPEG. Let's see if I bring up the highlights a bit. Yeah, that's a bit much. That's not so bad. I mean, ideally, I would want more fine tune. If I brought this into Photoshop, let's say we make a curves adjustment layer, and I'm sorry I'm not explaining what I'm doing. You know, that's definitely for other videos, but I just want you to get the idea. I want to get the concepts over, but just adding a layer mask to our curves adjustment layer, which I have made a video on. We'll use a soft brush here and just bring in some of that, you know, a little bit more subtly, like where you want the whites, and especially the eyes. The eyes are quite dark. Again, could be your intention. And let's just see if this is clear enough. Before, after. Before, after. So, again, completely up to you, but an image like this, and we could even bring down the opacity now and just have there, just subtly, just a little bump, and it takes it from this gray black, and puts a little bit of white in there, and I think the composition is the same. You know, we can even bring some up in the hair here as well. And I think you still have that beautiful contrast of light and shadow, but, you know, like I mentioned before, the viewer doesn't feel like they're missing something on the spectrum, because when you have this middle gray, also to a human being's eye, they pick up on the fact that we're missing this part of the histogram, this whole section, which is blank here. See, if we look at the histogram here and I pick up the exposure, right, or rather the highlights and the whites, now we're seeing, I mean, obviously I'm exaggerating, but we're seeing this part of the histogram being filled a bit And it's just interesting how the perception of our eyes can see that. All right, I think we'll wrap this up. This is really cute. Jamie always has a very interesting tone to his photos. Really like this one. This one is magnificent. This one is beautiful. Really well done. That's a top 3 photo right there. Really great clarity, beautiful white background. Maybe the shadow here could have been white, and maybe your subject was a little bit too close to the background there. I really like that tone. Some really great ones, you guys. Really, really impressed. Okay, I would like to do more of these. So thanks for listening. And as always, if you are not participating in submitting a fun photo challenge each week, come check us out at 52frames.com or on our Facebook page, 52 Frames. This is Yosef. Thanks so much. Happy shooting, everyone.